Hey, everybody, it's Tommy Canale, and welcome back to Before the Lights podcast, the show that tells you how they made their mark. His resume is chock full of iconic artists, a history maker that is called the grandfather of rock and roll productions. He was a stage manager, the MC at Woodstock, toured with the likes of Peter, Paul, and Mary, Dylan, and countless others. He oversaw the Newport Folk Festival as well as Newport Jazz. He did lighting design for the Rolling Stones, the Monterey Pop Festival that featured Neil Diamond, Janis Joplin, Neil Young, The Doors, and Jimi Hendrix. A true living rock and roll legend that also built Dylan's speakers. In 2003, he received the Pionee Lifetime Achievement Award. Please welcome to the show, Chip Monck. Chip, welcome to the show.
And thank you.
Let's start here before we get into music. As a youngster, did you design a potato harvester that you sold to McCormick?
Yes. Yeah, because it was very difficult. I went to a self-help school where we had to grow all our own vegetables and all that sort of stuff, and the cattle and all that. And I thought there was an easier way, so I just revamped the school's tractor, and it worked very nicely.
It must have worked very well if McCormick bought it from you. So tell me, what did you learn about lighting from Greg Hammy?
A lot. Yeah, very talented fellow. It all started. My mother had an unpleasant marriage, and I had a father that never communicated. So the first Wednesday of every month, she wrote this letter to the Wellesley public school system and said that in order for me to keep stable, I had to be in New York the first Wednesday of every month to see this doctor, and then I would be better. When we first went to New York, we'd throw the bags in the Biltmore and go to the automat and put your quarters in and get some food. And then we went to a large building, and I said, "Oh, this is the doctor's office?" No, we're just stopping here on the way. And and we saw a matinee, and then after more food, we saw an evening performance. And that kindled the whole idea about how do we take that sort of brilliant costuming, lighting, staging, and apply it to folk, which was very popular at that time. And sooner or later, we came up with an idea. We both escaped a home that wasn't much fun.
If I understand right, when you went to Broadway, did you see the likes of Carousel and Paint Your Wagon, South Pacific, Guys and Dolls?
Absolutely, all of them. It was wonderful.
Unbelievable.
It was the tinsel and glitter that I thought should be brought to production for music.
Uh-huh. And then did you begin doing lighting at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, New York, too?
Yes, I began at the Village Gate, which was really exceptional.
Uh-huh.
It was in the Mills Hotel on Bleecker Street, and I was living just around the corner in New York. And it was marvelous. It was Odetta, Josh White, Jeffrey Holder, Brock Peters, Leon Bibb, Miriam Makeba, Belafonte's folk singers. And then we got into jazz, Sarah Vaughan, and just a marvelous cast list. And I learned a great deal. Learning to count Monck and Herbie Mann and Charlie Mingus was quite an effort. And one of the busboys became my rigging assistant, and his name was Sam Shepard.
Wow.
So it was glistening. It was a wonderful time and great time to learn. And Sam was just so helpful, except that he couldn't tie a bow on, but we worked on that. And we finally got it. We just did double half hitches and a back half hitch. Yeah.
So tell me, Chip, how does somebody that's in lighting and stage production and design start building speakers and then end up building speakers that Dylan uses on tour?
But that was just for the New York area. Yeah, I just built these large speakers that I thought would be great, and they worked well. And so Albert Grossman, who was management at that time, said, "Yeah, okay, why don't you do all since you got a truck and you got the speakers, why don't you do all the East Coast tours with Dylan?" Well, I'd met Mr. Dylan before because we were having a drink at the Kettle of Fish above the Gaslight on McDougal Street, and he said, "I understand you have a typewriter. I need it." That's okay, fine. I leave the premises, which was 2 or 3 steps away from the gate. It was the kitchen for the hotel at one time, and well, I leave at 4:00. I come back at about 1:00. You're more than welcome to use the space and use a typewriter. And so he wrote some wonderful things. I collected them all from the wastebasket and put them aside in our home in Bridgehampton, Long Island. And later, Barbara sold the place, and they demolished it in order to build something new. And all of those notes and everything of Dylan's went with it underneath the earth, where they really should have been. They could only be held personally and never sold. It was never that intention. So they ended up where they should have been.
So did Dylan write then "A Hard Rain's a Gonna Fall" in your apartment?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, he never said much, and he said, you can look at this and read it over, but I don't need a co-writer because I'm not paying you, so just keep it to yourself. He was a man of very few words,
but very strong words when he did speak.
Oh yeah, what a wonderful career he has. He's so clever and so bright. He deserves it.
You mentioned Albert Grossman. How did he put you in charge of the Newport Folk Festival that lasted 8 years, and you did Newport Jazz for 9?
Albert had a way of working things. So he was basically for George Wein, who was the promoter of New York of jazz. When they started folk, Albert was in charge. So he said, "You're going to light it because I've seen you work at the gate, and it'll get better, I'm sure." and it just went on from there.
And at the same time that you were doing that, you were also touring with Belafonte, Peter, Paul, and Mary, and Dylan, right?
Yes, and Miriam Makeba, which I had a 5-year contract with Harry to shepherd her because he had brought her from South Africa, and she was the new voice, close quote.
What were some of the things that you recall about the Newport Folk Festival, like some of the people that performed, like Peter Oakes and some of the classics that played there?
Well, the classics was in '65 when Dylan decided to go to electric. That was wonderful. And Albert punched out one of the Lomax brothers. And, it was all very, very tense, but Albert was maintaining his control, and that's what he did well.
In 1966, you took care of the Rolling Stones in Boston, and you said they were the worst act you had ever seen. They had no discipline, but they were better in '69, and in '72 came alive. What was with them that they were so bad in '66?
Charlie just said, chalk it up to adolescence, but we just came in, phoned in the tour, did the music, got back in the limos, and went away. It wasn't important for them to have any really cohesive instruction, discipline, how the staging, the blocking, how do you move, where do you go, all of those things that make up a live show were just absent. it was disappointing. And then when I was given the tour, I just decided that it should be better. So I just put it all in the pot and stirred it up and then delivered it. It was fun. When you're called or you make an appointment with Mr. Jagger, the difficulty is that I find him as someone who has stowed 7 personalities or 7 identities. And it's a good idea within the first 30 seconds to figure out to whom you're speaking. Otherwise, the meeting is of no use.
Were you able to pick it out?
You know, he is probably now one of the most prominent frontmen in the business. He has easily passed Anka and many others who are, you know, particularly difficult to work with, but do very good shows.
Tell me about the Monterey Pop Festival where Hendrix was, The Who, and it was Janis Joplin's first performance.
Oh, wonderful. We finally got everything hung. It was wonderful. It was in a little stage house. You know, it looked just like a little cottage at the end of the arena. And I brought out all my drawings and I sat down with the foreman, and he said, yeah, okay, right. Just a minute, I'll be back. And he came back with a John Deere tractor with a piece of Roan tower, triangulated truss, tacked to the front bucket, and just a plastic chair on the end of it with a seat belt. And he said, "Now you can reach anywhere you wish to hang." And I will send you one of those photographs that I'm very proud of. Yeah. He was wonderful. The wonderful part about it is that nobody said this is too hard. You know, they always came up with a solution prior to you being concerned about it, which is absolutely wonderful. Dealing with the right people who are in the right place is so marvelous because the energy is so great when you get when 3 or 4 of you get together and things work.
Tell me a little bit about Janis Joplin. What was she like? I mean, did you know she was going to be a star right there at the Monterey?
Certainly. It was very clear. Janis had her own problems, as all people do who perform, because they're constantly under the microscope of those that are watching, tearing it apart or lauding them and saying how wonderful they are. And you have to really have a hard skin to do that and not cave. She's a brilliant vocalist, a very smart person, except for the fact that the pressure was too great and the guidance wasn't enough.
In '68, you took care of the Philadelphia Music Festival that had The Who, Pink Floyd, Ray Charles, and it was Judy Garland's last U.S. concert.
Oh, yeah, she was marvelous.
Was she?
Yeah, well, you know, those people have hard skins and lots of talent, and they know exactly how to do it. So it's really great fun to work with them because you always end up learning something and saying thank you, and hopefully they feel the same way. And Al Cooper was wonderful. He was my assistant stage manager, and he just rolled into it wonderfully. Yeah, and that was the premiere basically before we started Fillmore East.
So tell me, Chip, how did you come up with this idea in this way to design the distinctive half-shell stage for the Miami Pop Festival that has become an iconic stage? Where did this come from?
Some wet dream somewhere. Things just pop into your head, you know, and I had some very valuable help, and the the model was made and put in a big box with lots of screws. So, of course, the opening of it, the unfurling of the model was quite something because it took 20 minutes to take all the screws out of the box. And that was all programmed to make sure that it looked important. The prelude is important as the actual show or the reveal.
And the Miami Pop Festival featured Marvin Gaye, Chuck Berry, Fleetwood Mac, Joni Mitchell. How good was Fleetwood Mac in the 60s?
Oh, wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. They're so clever.
I am a fan of Fleetwood Mac, and I can only imagine how good they were back in that day.
Oh, yes. It was wonderful because it was all raw. It wasn't terribly polished, and they were just who they were, and it was very clear who they were, which was exactly what the audience needed. And all we need to do is add tinsel and glitter to it to not overcome anything that they're trying to do or accomplish, but just the tinsel and glitter and the little bits and pieces that make it a little unusual and never a little too much for their vocals or their instrumentals, just enough to support it. We are a support mechanism, and that's what you have to remember. You never go too far. You have to be very careful about what you think would be fun to make sure that it's not destructive or takes away from the music.
In 69 in August, where we're at now, almost to the date by the time this comes out, it'll be past, but you helped shape Woodstock as the lighting designer. How did you handle lighting and sound with 400,000 people in attendance as one man?
Well, the nice part about it is it was Bill Hanley who was doing the sound, so that was all taken care of. He was way ahead of his time, well, it was kind of easy. Well, I met with Michael Lang and we talked, and his first concern was the towers that were needed for the follow spots. There were 4 towers at about 40 feet high at exactly 100 feet out from the downstage center position. And they had to be there because the so strong Super Trooper carbon arcs, they didn't have a light bulb in it. They just had 2 pieces of carbon, copper clad, pencil thin, and they burned together, and you had 42 minutes of light, and then you had to replace those carbons, point your light somewhere to make sure that everything is working. You usually use some tree or something, whatever you could see the shape and the intensity of your light, then you could come back in. So there was always this, we had to start some of the lamps with half carbons to make sure that they burned out first before the others with full carbons. So everybody had to start with the prescribed length of carbon in order to make sure that I could pull 1 or 2 lamps out without losing lights, because I needed all of those 12 lamps all the time. The thing that was interesting is that the 650,000 watts of light, being 650 to 1,000 watt instruments, ended up living under the stage, just rusting. And the show was actually done with only those 12 carbon arcs, and that to make to get to a point where it is what you're doing is acceptable for a feature in film was horrifying, because we used colors in order to differentiate from the previous act, and some of the Janis colors were greens and blues and all sorts of strange colors, but it seemed to suit her. So we just, there's only seven colors in the lamp, so, and sometimes you use 2 at the same time in order to get a more rich or saturate color. It was just cross your fingers and hope it works, because it was new.
How does the lighting guy become the MC for Woodstock?
Well, Michael said at 7 o'clock on the Friday morning, well, these people are a little too close to the stage, and they're going to just, all they're going to do is see plywood for 3 days if they don't move back. So why don't you do that as your first job? So I politely said, ladies and gentlemen, I need your assistance, and I think you'll be pleased because it'll help you a great deal during the 3 days you're spending with us. I need you to pick up your belongings, those of you in the front row, and the next 5 or 6 rows, if you would do so. And I'd like you to walk backwards, please, and I'll count you down. All I need is 20 steps, because I don't want you viewing plywood for the next 3 days. So you need to move back so you have a good position, and you can fortify that position, as I hope you know is necessary. And I counted it down, and much to my amazement, everybody. I asked them to walk backwards, so it wasn't going to be an assault of the people behind them. So they just walked backwards with their stuff for about 20 counts, which got me back at least 60 feet. And everybody sat down in the little hollows in the soil that had been made by the previous people. So it wasn't uncomfortable, it wasn't difficult, but it was for their own benefit.
What was it like, Chip, looking out to 400,000 people at this festival?
It was marvelous. It was huge. It was great. It was free. Everything about it was superb. The way it turned out, we're given gifts. If you're really particular about the act and the audience and care and the assistance that you give both, you get cut some slack. And always in these peculiar times when we're doing something that perhaps is new or has yet to be tried and true, you get favors. And boy, how they happily received.
I have a 3-record vinyl on the old label of Coalition of Woodstock, and it is marvelous to listen to. Why did you come out and tell everybody to stay away from the brown acid?
Because the guys in the medical tent said this is a problem.
Okay.
Now that's probably one of the most difficult announcements that you could ever make, because those that have taken it, if anybody had, what are they going to feel? How are they going to be? What are they if they're tripping? This is really a problem. So I just tried to do it in a way that was just an FYI. Guys, just beware. Be careful. This is going to be a long 3 days for us all. Try to moderate your intake as best you can.
Crosby, Stills, and Nash. It was their only second performance ever. And they said they were scared shitless on the stage. I can only imagine looking out to the sea of people as your second performance ever, and you're at Woodstock.
Oh, yes. The most exciting thing that happened during that particular show was the closing of I'm not sure what song it was, but Stephen's falsetto at the end of that song was just the most wonderful thing. Oh.
I have talked to some people who have been in attendance, and they all tell me that something happened in the crowd, that everybody started changing when Sly and the Family Stone did Higher. Did you see or feel the same thing?
Oh, yeah, sure. They as a family adventure, they were absolutely fabulous. Undisciplined, but just fun. They really knew their trade. It's always such a great thing to be surprised, with a family group such as that. When they blossom in front of you, you really feel that as though you've been given a great gift, and then all you have to do is light it.
What was backstage like? Was it chaotic, or what was going on backstage for 3 days?
I have no idea. Never got to it. You know, I would take a nap. My follow spot courses were underneath the stage during daylight performances. We'd take all the blacks or the curtains that we were going to mask the stage with, had the roof been load bearing. And that's why we couldn't hang any of the lights that ended up rusting under the stage, because the roof was only capable of holding its own weight. So all those blacks, we just blacked out a great space underneath the stage. And I just made an announcement that, anybody who has ever run a follow spot of any sort, would you be so kind as to just come and join me underneath the stage, and we're going to have a class, and we're looking forward to seeing if some of you will be ready to join me tonight. And it worked. It's the wonderful part about it is all you do is cross your fingers and said, "Oh, another gift." Thank God. Either him or her.
When it was all over, Chip, what was it like when that festival ended?
Well, ending with Jimmy was just wonderful. It was so exciting. It was just the whole thing was a nightmare. But for the audience, I have a feeling that the way they actually interacted with the residents in that area, and everybody was basically on their best behavior. They realized that this was the most unusual happening, and it might be a good idea to make sure it's successful. And each one of you are responsible.
Have you ever been back to the grounds?
Yes, upon occasion. Yeah, it's the museum now has purchased all of that land by gift, and it's a hallowed site for all intents and purposes. Yeah, it has a right to just be there.
It's on my list to visit, hopefully someday.
Yes, you must. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 815 area is not too far away.
Well, I'm actually in Vegas. That was when I'm in Illinois, but I will get back to that area for sure sometime. But after Woodstock,
let me know so I can smooth the path for you. You need to know who to see.
I will definitely do that. I appreciate that. After Woodstock, you did lighting and stage at the Greek Theater for Crosby, Stills and Nash and Joni Mitchell. And from the things that you had sent me, you had a little line there that said, "She was a cold bitch."
Yes, right. Well, no, she knows what she does. She knows how good she is, and sometimes it's difficult. Well, that's just a defensive mechanism. You know? My wife and I flew to New York to meet her and a person from her band, and I got up when she came back from the ladies' room and pushed her chair in, and she found that inappropriate.
Wow.
And said, "I don't need you." And I said, "Thank you so much for the ticket. We'll go home now. Thank you. Good day."
Time to move on.
Yeah. One step at a time.
You handled Eric Clapton's Derek and the Dominoes premiere. Where was this at, Chip?
Where was it? I have no idea. Derek and the Dominoes, December 22nd, mixed gift to Eric, premiere performance. That's chapter 9.
Chapter 9.
Yeah, it's in that lengthy thing that I sent you. Well, I spent some time with Chris O'Dell at Eric's place, and was properly introduced to everyone. Listened and went through all the rehearsals and knew the stuff inside out. So it was really easy to do. It's you can't listen to an LP or any recorded material because it's not the way it is in performance.
True.
So monitor tapes are essential for us because what I do is do lyric sheets, every single bar, every single and every note. And from that, I make up my cue sheets, give me an indication of where and what I should be doing at that time. Who is premier, who's support, and who's doing nothing. And that's the way I work. I know it's peculiar, but it's essentially exceptionally intricate in how I listen, how I hear, what I see, and what I want to see. And all of that is done in my preparation, and that's done from monitor tapes and getting exceptionally close and familiar to the material.
Let's move on to this. Altamont free concert for the Rolling Stones. Hell's Angels were the security. A member of the group steals the large custom carpet of the Stones stage set. Chip goes, nope, not going to happen. You go to get it back. They knocked your teeth out?
Yeah. Oh, well, what they'd done is they put it in a pickup truck or on a pickup truck. So half of it was over the roof and half of it was hanging out the tail. And unfortunately, there was a chopper on either side of it. So when the truck pulled off, I decided, well, the rug's staying here, thank you. And I just grabbed the end of it and hoped that it would just slide off. Well, one of the bikes came off as well. And I managed to have, I think, about 10 minutes of logical conversation that felt like. And then they got fed up with the time it was taking. And I got a lead-filled pool cue across the face. The point is that the teeth are replaceable. I'm so glad it wasn't the nose and the eyes. It could have been worse.
Did you end up getting the carpet back then?
I did. We negotiated it with Sonny Barger. The whole thing with Rock Scully and then Emmett Drogan and Sam Cutler. I mean, look, one of the things that's really difficult is that when helpful, unschooled folk are put in positions of control, their fault is that they adopt the strength of the band or the principal, such as Michael Phillip, right? And they think they're approaching God status, and they think that they can do anything and anything is right. And the choice of the Angels as security, thank you, Sam Cutler. It's it's just not logical. Yes, they might have been helpful, but the Grateful Dead and the Angels have some sort of understanding. And when they were at Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, yeah, it was all nice. But this is, Altamont was so poorly designed and thought of. I mean, Sears Point Raceway was the first location, and then Filmways, who owned Sears Point, unfortunately, decided that they want a piece of the film. So Ronnie Schneider, the company manager at that time, said, no, we're going elsewhere. Now, Sears Point, the audience is on a slight rise up towards the stage. Therefore, the pressure of the audience is all back on themselves because they're trying to climb up a hill. Then we get to Altamont, and Altamont is a delicious bowl, perfectly done, and they scooped out the side on the stage right side or camera left, and there was another 50,000 people that had brilliant viewing because they completed this bowl. It was marvelous, except for the fact that those in charge made decisions that were unschooled.
In 1972, you come to where I live now in Las Vegas to Caesar's Palace with Paul Anka. What kind of relationship did you have with Paul?
He's very difficult to work with, but he's a brilliant performer. he's very confronting and not really polite or courteous in any fashion whatsoever, because it's all me. No problem. You know, it's just, that's the way he is. But, you know, Caesars kept booking him because he was a draw. So, good news.
And then did you also work with John Lennon and Yoko Ono, or just John?
Well, Yoko comes with John, and McCartney and Bangladesh was brilliant. And John, because he couldn't be invited to Bangladesh because he would have brought Yoko, in fact, had his own concert. So, as I said, there's always a little bit of rough surface between each of the individual performers in a group. So they sorted it out well, except when I did the Yoko and John event, Yoko decided that she would take all the design items or things that were placed around and on the stage and get rid of them because they would be in John's way. And so I took her by the arm and showed her the front seat and asked her to sit here and just direct from there, please. And I'll take care of the staging if you don't mind.
How big of a production was it to take care of Elvis in Hawaii?
Well, he was there just before the night before the Stones performed. So all we did was see him, say hi politely, introduce myself to the Colonel, and say what a wonderful concert it was, because it was very much like considering lighting. It's just there's too many things that are in the way of getting the job done with many acts, such as the Beatles, because they don't need any lighting and they don't need anything. Presley had his own thing and didn't need anything from me. So there's certain acts that it's best for you to just stand behind and away from until such time as you're invited. You don't go after it.
That makes sense. I understand that. Chip, tell me, how did you get involved, and tell me about the Rocky Horror Picture Show project?
Oh, that was Lou Adler. That was one of my 2 Broadway shows. I was given a model, which was no bigger than maybe 2 feet wide, equally as high, and this was the staging. And then I had to draw it from side angles, from front, from rear, and in floor plan, etc., and then figure out how to light it. And it was just fun. It was difficult. It was interesting. It was new. It was British, which was helpful as far as the draw. It didn't last too long, but it was a really funny show, and it was neat. Meatloaf was great, and it was wonderful. It's one of those things you just give a shot at, and I got a Tony nomination for it, for lighting, which is pretty neat. Thank you very much.
Did you have any idea it would become as popular as it is?
No. I mean, it's wonderful. It's a cult following. It's great. And it's still shown every night somewhere, or every weekend. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a fun show. Yeah. And the nice part about it doesn't hurt anybody.
That is true. Well, where somebody did get hurt was in Zaire with the Rumble in the Jungle with Ali and Foreman. And then also the Zaire Festival that had James Brown, the Pointer Sisters, and Bill Withers. Was this a production disaster? Was it easy? Tell me about this.
It was easy, except Mobutu, unfortunately, wanted to keep all the equipment. That was a bit difficult getting out. Getting in was easy.
So
I had the crane that I needed. McManus did the staging. And I basically ended up doing. Well, I had to draw the plot of every group that was there. So in the evenings, I was shepherded out by my keeper, and we'd go to these villages where the acts were performing. The interesting thing about it is the drum riser was never up center or never in the center in the rear. It was always to the left or the right, which was really interesting. The focal point wasn't the drums at the back. It was always on the left or the right, which was an interesting approach. But the difficulty was that there's oodles of children, of course, there watching the local show. And when they wanted something from you, they would come and politely use a handkerchief and they would touch you and pat you wherever they could reach, asking for money. And I was dragged off in the bush by a group of them, and I had to be saved. The act stopped performing and came over and helped me out of my predicament. Africa is delicious, especially with Miriam Makeba, where she is the queen. You know, it was absolutely wonderful. And her performances for Kwame Nkrumah at Ghana's Black Star Square began the whole beginning of lighting Martin Luther King and Kwame Nkrumah for the OAU, the Organization for African Unity. So I lighted, when Miriam was ill or had wanted some time off, I just stuck with Kwame and lit their appearances as they promoted the Organization for African Unity. It's so easy. It's if you do your work with reasonable restraint, but making sure that the exciting things that you thought about are appropriately placed and never detract from the vocalist, it's easy.
Did you get to see the fight?
No, because the fight was canceled because of the cut on Foreman's eye, and the festival went on because it had to, because all the performers were there, and then the fight was later.
Tell me about Bette Midler.
Oh, wonderful! My license plate on my VW Bug was EHBM, Edward Herbert Beresford Monck. And when Bette asked me, what's that stand for? I said, everybody's had Bette Midler. So in her new Jaguar, she backed down the driveway from Aaron Russo's office. She zoomed across the street backwards and planted the ass end of her Jag in my Volkswagen. And I flipped over and ended up in the property on the other side of the hedge in their garden. And Aaron found me another VW and said, I'm sorry. She's very spirited. Her shows are like clockwork. She knows exactly what to do, when, and how, and she reads the audience in a fantastic manner. She is one of the most clever women I've ever worked with. Yeah, she's just she's magic, but it's all so carefully tuned. It's the deeper you get into it, the more confusing it becomes. But she knows exactly what she's doing and when and why.
Did you worked with her on tour and then also on her movie The Rose, correct?
Yes, did The Rose, and then did her Broadway show, and that was another Tony nomination, which was nice. But Abe Fader and Jules Fisher, you know, they have the press and the ability to orchestrate those sort of awards. So I never got one, but I got I'm looking to get the third nomination. That would be nice. Three's a crowd.
There you go. You started Pax Productions, that was stadium entertainment, and a great concept of taking sports and a concert and putting these two things together. Was this all part of the tour that the Beach Boys did, that when they went across for baseball stadiums?
Yes, yeah, that was such fun. It took 15 to 20 minutes to roll. Everything, of course, had to be on turf tires with many too many. But so the stage completely set up could be rolled out through the tunnel exit or entrance into the stadium. It was all drawn by John Deere tractors, who were wonderful because all they would do is they'd give us 10 tractors and one huge one to pull the stage, all with turf tires and everything, so that we never caused any damage to the turf, which was essential. And in about 20 minutes, maybe a little more, the skirt that surrounded the stage, which was painted by Ron Strang of Warner Brothers Burbank Scenic Art, in wonderful waves and lovely hand-done painting of this huge piece of canvas, or is it just muslin? It wasn't hand canvas, and because it needed to be light enough. And we'd have 100 cheerleaders, which did all the work for me of the unfurling of the staging, and using these 1-foot nails that they would secure the muslin to the earth too from the staging. And it looked great. They looked like they were in the middle of big waves. I thought it was neat.
Great idea. And did you do this more than just the Beach Boys, or they the only one that did that?
No. They were the Doobie Brothers. You can't remember them. There were other acts. Luckily, I found somebody who could handle it well. And after the first maybe 5 productions, I let it go, and the technical expertise that was in it just got watered down, and the speakers got just positioned wherever they wanted them, and instead of the appropriate circle around the staging, etc., the precision fell apart, and it just became well, we'll get as much done as we can, mm-hmm. which is not the labels that I like on the production. But anyway, sometimes it's best just to give it away and find something else.
You found something else, all right. How long did it take you, and how much work did you do for the '84 Olympic Games?
It's very difficult. Working with a gentleman who was the director was really rough. I was discharged before the show because I hadn't positioned the music stage in the correct position. It was easier to just water it down and get it done. So that was unsuccessful, but a great learning experience for me of how to work with these folk who would stand on their desk and scream at you. That showed you that there was only one important person in the room. So, yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you. And then, of course, there's I've had enough. Goodbye.
Okay, I've done what I can. I've listened to all I can, and now it's my turn to say I'm out of here.
Yeah. Well, it gets to a certain point. There's no sense in trying to flaunt it, or if they don't understand it and they don't, and we're not on the right track, it's best just to say thank you very much for the opportunity. I really enjoyed working with you, and I have something else to do. Thank you. Good day. It's, being polite is something that I think is really necessary. What do you think? What do you want? And if you can't answer the questions logically, then I don't think I can help you.
I am with you there 100%. If you can't be polite and to each other, then there's no reason to work together.
Yeah, sometimes it just doesn't work.
It does.
Linda Ronstadt, Doobie Brothers, CSNY, and the Beach Boys, Charlie Daniels, Merle Haggard, and the Four Tops and the Temptations were the acts in '83 with Music After Sport. That's the next to last page.
Why did you decide in '88 to move to Australia?
Oh, because I married one of them.
Ah, okay.
I mean, we're at Bedlam Midler, and we've just had an opening night, and we're at the Steeple Townhouse in Sydney, and we're all up having a wonderful time, feeling very good about ourselves. Bill Darlington was sound, and myself, and all of the other participants, and it was time for Bloody Marys. So I took a look over the over the cement, and there was this gorgeous shape lying nose down, no blanket on the cement, and I said, "Oh well, here we go." And I went over and tapped her on the shoulder, and I said, "Excuse me, we're feeling very good about ourselves. I don't know if you had anything, if you saw the performance last night, but Miss Midler was absolutely wonderful, and we're celebrating. Would you like a Bloody Mary?" And she rolled over with a big smile on her face and said, "Fuck off, mate." Ding, the bell went off in my head, and 2 weeks later, I took her back to the States with me, and we married.
What a great story. Great story.
Thank you, Bet. Her reach is long.
Yes, it is.
When you're working with really a class act, everything just falls together because they're so provisioned and so positioned. It's wonderful. Everything around it just falls into place. All you have to do is read the signs carefully.
How many times did you set the bar, so to speak, with lighting design and then only to exceed it again?
Oh, well, the Stone 72 tour was really luscious because in an arena, all the follow spots are usually up in the ceiling, and the length of throw is sometimes 200 feet, which means that they're just like a flashlight and not of any great use. So I was trying to figure out with the Stones what I could do to make it feel as though they were not phoning in the evening's performance. And so I thought, well, I think the best thing to do is to have them, since they are continually criticizing each other. There was, Charlie Watts and Mick Taylor were in one group, and then Keith is always alone by himself, and then Mick is basically alone by himself. The best thing, I thought, why not hang a mirror in front of the stage, way up in the air, at about 30 degrees from your viewpoint of standing on the deck. And then they could watch everybody else's moves as they performed, and then they could have critical time about, I didn't want you to do that when I was doing this. And then I said, I got a better idea. If I just unload the follow spots and put them behind the amps at the back of the stage, and put my 7 lamps there, and I put the mirror out front at about 30 feet, then my length of throw is exactly 100 feet from the back of the stage to the mirror, to the lamp, to the light that comes back and lights those people. Now I have the intensity and the control, because all I could do with a long headset cord, I could walk behind the amps and help anybody trim the carbons in the lamp right when they were down, or just remind them that you never look elsewhere than in the mirror, because of course everything's reversed. So the best thing to do is you live in the mirror during the performance. You never look elsewhere except to retrim the carbons, and it worked.
What is life like these days for good old Chipper?
Neat. Neat. I finally got the office in order. and I'm so sorry we don't have visuals, because I even have my blue backing for you.
You can.
I'll send you a picture.
There you go. Yeah, send me a picture. You know what you need, Chip, is you need a documentary of your life done for television for people to see. I mean, your resume, like I said, is chock full of iconic events, and there's just no way to get it all into one show, but you need a docuseries.
It would be fun. I had the Speakeasy in 1974, which had a wonderful group of folks. Barney Ray, Steve Miller, Danny O'Keefe, Jackson Brown, Paul Williams, Dave Mason, John Lord, Tom Waits, Pointed Sisters, Jim Stafford, Buffy St. Marie, Melissa Manchester, Leon Russell, Clive Davis. I sent this to you, I think.
Yes.
Waylon Jennings, Grace Slick, Mike Love, Charles Lloyd, John McLaughlin, Al Cooper, Alan Lee, Peter Gabriel, and then there's another list on the rest of the page. But anyway, that worked kind of well. We didn't get a second season, but it was a fun show, and it was booked wonderfully. We had all the talent that we could possibly want. It was really Danny Cordell and all sorts of folk were there. It was wonderful. I don't know. I've shied away. Everybody writes a book. I speak, at Monkeys, which is my own sort of strange color, angle, intensity, and timing language. And sometimes I need help in translation. I found a writer that I really wanted to work with, but he's doing books on people like Ahmet Ertegun, Bill Graham, and Sam Shepard. So I don't know. It's such a peculiar craft because it's so mechanical. If you don't realize that the same manner that you put nuts and bolts together and try not to cross-thread them because that's the only time they get to laugh at you, you have the fulcrum and the plank, and that's similar to the seesaw. And if you want to dump your co-worker or partner or whoever's on the other end of the plank, you can just kick the fulcrum a little bit, and you then have control. Nuts and bolts are tensile strength, and then they have shear, and they have load carrying capacities. Now, all that mechanics is it not the same thing as dealing with a relationship? Now, I'm sure many would say no, it's too complicated, or no, that's not the way. I love her. That's it. So I don't know if it wasn't going to be a bestseller. I don't think it's worth writing, and I don't know if I could create a bestseller.
When we get done here, I have somebody for you that I can connect you with that can probably write you a bestseller. So I'll get to that here in just a minute. But before we get there, Chip, I want to say this. Thank you so much for coming on the show, talking about we hit highlights of your career and a little bit more into Woodstock, but thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, it's a delight. It's really nice to speak with you, and I'm so glad we got the audio straightened out. I was freaking away. I do that before every close quote performance. I get very worried, and then everything works out wonderfully. So thank you for doing it.
Oh, you are more than welcome.
Just a lovely, lovely, lovely section. Delighted.
I appreciate that. Listeners, do me a favor. Take 30 seconds out of your day. Wherever you listen to this podcast, click, rate, and review the show. 5 stars, nice comments are always appreciated. That's going to do it for this episode of Before the Lights. I'm Tommy Canale. And until next time, everybody, I salute a chin chin.
Bye. Thank you.